This is Tom Needham, and you are listening to The Sounds of Film. And joining us on the phone is a country superstar. I'm talking about Phil Vassar. You probably know his music. He's written hits for lots of other people, including Tim McGraw, Joe DiMessina, Colin Ray, and Alan Jackson. And he's also had a ton of hits on his own. What you may not know about Phil, though, is he's also an actor. He's appeared in this movie called Chasing Taste, which is coming out on DVD. It's a screwball comedy about a down-and-out New York City writer who mistakenly becomes a major food critic despite losing his sense of smell and taste. Phil, thank you so much for joining us on The Sounds of Film.
Hey, Tom. How are you today, buddy?
Very good. Oh, man, it's a pleasure to speak to you. I'm a big fan of your music.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate that.
Well, you're the real deal. You write and you perform and you sing, and you have success all the way around. Now, what I never expected from you, though, is that I'd see you acting. I mean, one of the reasons we're talking today is that you're in this movie called Chasing Taste. It's a comedy that takes place in New York City, and I was just wondering, how did you get involved in this project?
Well, the screenwriter, Lori Fisher, is one of my dear friends, and she grew up in Nashville. Her dad, Bobby, big songwriter, had #1 songs for Reba McEntire, whoever, but it's just kind of a small world. So she called me one day and she said, "Phil, would you be interested in doing a part? Because I've done, 3 or 4 movies, right? Just small parts. And we're actually working on another movie to be shot in Nashville that I have a bigger part in. So I don't think De Niro's worried or anything, but but I do love acting,
Yeah.
I think he's got everything to worry about. But I'll tell you what, it's such a craft, and these guys are just so good. It's like you see, Michael Jordan playing basketball, or Tiger at his best, or De Niro, or Dustin Hoffman or something. These guys are so good, or whoever, musicians when they're just hitting on all cylinders, So it's such a fun thing, and I just Lori said, "Look, I've kind of written a little part in there for you as a DJ," and I'm like, "Well, hell, I'd love to do it." And I happen to be playing New York City, right? So we actually they took me right over there, and I did my shooting, and then I flew right out. So it was pretty cool.
They say one of the toughest things to do is comedy. And this is a very funny movie. And you were great in it, by the way. Congratulations.
Well, thanks.
But it's hard, right? When you're doing a scene like that, because there's no studio audience or anything like that. Did you find it tough to do comedy?
Well, I think comedy's fun. It is fun, but it is a little bit different. I think it's even easier to be. I've always wanted to do different roles, and I have my dream roles. What would you do? Could you, get shot in a movie, or be completely different than what you are? But it wasn't so much of a departure. I got to be a DJ, and I've sat in radio studios and done 1,000 interviews all over the world. So it wasn't that much of a stretch for me. But I just think that getting a chance to do something like that for me was, I don't know. It was just, it's intriguing, and Lori is great, and Sean, Gannett, the director, he's just amazing, and these actors, that I got to sit in the same room with, it's intimidating. It's like, when somebody, it's like if you've never written a song and you sit in a room with somebody like us that does it for a living. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's an intimidating thing.
I'm just kind of curious. I always like to ask people, what's your favorite movie? Or what are some of your favorite films?
It's so funny. I'm so all over the place, but I always go back to, I can't imagine, Sound of Music. I love musicals, right? Something like that. Grease, I loved it. I love it. I love music.
Wow.
I just saw Witness the other day. I loved it. I think Harrison Ford was brilliant in it. I just think, I'm all over the place when it comes to that kind of stuff. I do love, stuff like Harry Potter and all these things. It's, these sort of, but those movies where people have to sit in a room and they're just saying, they blow your mind, like Meryl Streep or something. Yeah. You just go, holy crap.
Yeah.
That.
Well, it's interesting. It sounds like you have a lot of respect for the art of acting and the skill involved.
I think it's brilliant. I really just think it's brilliant. I think, you go to Broadway, and I've been to Broadway so many times, and just you sit there and you go, these guys are doing 8 of these a week. and they are monsters. I mean, nobody can do better than them. I mean, Broadway is like, I can't even imagine it. Even, Reba, when she did Annie, Get Your Gun, and, Huey Lewis, my buddy, he did Chicago. He said, you need to do Billy, you'd be great at it, But I think it's some of the greatest experiences, like even, Reba lives in about a 25,000 square foot house, right? And she was in New York living in a 1,500 square foot apartment for 4 months. And, it said, she said it was probably one of the funnest things she's ever done.
I'm always amazed with that. Like, like you said, there's often stars who have, millions and millions of dollars, all kinds of things. And if they get the opportunity to perform on Broadway, they take it. Sometimes at a loss, just for the experience. It sounds like you're really interested in this. Is this something you're going to be doing more of?
Well, I sure hope so. I really, really do hope more of these projects come my way. I've never really pursued them as much. I just had friends that are directing or screenwriters and say, look, I'd like to write a part in for you, or this part might be really neat. Would you do? Would you be a sergeant in the Army or whatever it may be? I'm like, heck yeah, I would love to do something like that. That would really stretch me. And
it's funny. I've talked to a lot of musicians who end up acting in movies, and I'm always kind of curious which ones end up making it and which ones don't. And surprisingly, I've talked to a lot of hip-hop artists who end up doing very, very well. And I asked them, like, why is that? And they always give me some variation of the answer that, well, hip-hop is talking more than singing, and it's kind of performing. It's, in some ways, there's an acting element to it. Is there anything like that in country music? Is there anything that you think, like, from being on stage, from being a performer, maybe telling stories or just performing your songs, that makes you capable of making that transition to film?
Well, I do think you put yourself, every song is a story. So you really put yourself as a character in that story, or the storyteller. I think movies are a lot the same, and I do think that the whole thing is hip-hop or rap artists, they do talk, and they are articulate, when they do a lot of that stuff. And so it's kind of fun to see. It's like comedians that are so...
Yeah.
I would think comedians probably have such an easier transition. It seems like it's an easier transition for them because they're up on... That's got to be one of the hardest gigs in the world, just standing up by yourself, trying to make people laugh. It's the most uncomfortable feeling I've ever had. Just seeing, being at the Improv or being somewhere and just seeing somebody just completely tank. It's the most uncomfortable feeling in the whole world. So these guys, usually these actors, you see them come off a stand-up, and, of course, Robin Williams or somebody like that who was so brilliant, and as an actor and as a stand-up, and so it's just, I love it. I mean, it's almost like a continuation of what you do.
Well, Phil, I think you were great in this movie, Chasing Taste, and I recommend that everyone try to check out this movie. One last question before you go. As you look back, you're still so young to go. As you look back, you're still so young, but you've had so many hits and so many different things that you've done. What is the one moment in your entertainment career right now at this point that was really just like the moment that you feel is the most special to you? It's hard to say, because there's something about your song hitting the top of the charts, or even something like, our Songwriter of the Year, which was a complete fluke. You think, wow, how does that happen a couple times? In my wildest dreams, that I probably would have never written that into the story because it was just too much of an impossibility. So I think something like that is something I'm really, really proud of. But it's like every day I'll remember something, because you're always in the middle of the battle, Right.
Middle of what we're doing, and I'm not one for looking back at all. It's always about looking forward. And my mom is the one. She'll go, do you remember when you were at the White House with the president and y'all were talking about? I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Or something, and so that's the kind of stuff that I'm sure one day I'll sit around and go, did I really do that?
Well, you have a lot of moments to look back on, a lot of success, and I know that our listeners are going to be asking for lots of your music. So we're going to be playing your music today, and you're going to be touring in the New York area. So I'm hoping that everyone goes and sees you. I know you often tour with Charlie Daniels, and I'm also hoping that people check out Chasing Taste. Phil, it's really been a pleasure speaking to you. Hopefully we can do this again. Hopefully you'll be in another movie and we can talk about that.
Well, thanks, Tom. I really appreciate you having me on, man. You're great. You're easy to talk to. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Phil, and good luck with all your projects.
I know where I'm